That's okay, I was still wrong.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Iroquois School Board. I'd call this meeting to order and am requesting a motion to move into executive session to discuss personnel.
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
I'm giving it to Sharon. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody? Okay, we are moving into executive session and we'll be back at 6:30 to have our budget work session with Mr. Wolski. Thank you. right, welcome back everyone to the Iroquois Board of Education meeting. We are going to turn it over to Mr. John Wolski, our business administrator, who's going to give us a presentation for our budget work session on the budget.
Thank you very much. We last had a budget work session back in January, wasn't it? I believe it was January. So at that time, we didn't have a lot of information about state aid and things like that. So we've got a little more answers, definitely more answers on the revenue side, and we'll have some questions on the expense side for you as well. Just refreshing what our vision is, our mission. Nothing's changed there. What we consider when we go through the budget process, the goals we have in mind, and how we want to use good judgment, open, professional manner. Future focused, of course, and in finance, we're definitely future focused. I mean, we don't want to look just at next year, but what about 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and what we may face then. So these are some of the things we'll talk about today. When we look at concerns and things now it's kind of the second bullet point there. State aid tax cap does not support higher costs driven by CPI. That's going to be the focus of a little what I'm talking about. I'll have a slide that has a lot more detail on that. But we also watch for state mandates, state aid distribution, possible changes in that could happen down the road. And of course, federal funding as well and how that affects us. Just a refresher on last year's vote results, in case people have questions on how we did last May. We had a 73% approval on the Proposition 1, which is the budget. And of course, all the other propositions passed as well with similar approval rates. And there's just, if you look at the budget vote itself, Proposition number 1, and you look at the last 7 or so years, you see it's very consistent, about 65 to 75% approval is what we see. Tax rates, we look at equalized tax rates because we have 6 different townships with 6 different tax rates. We equalize those and kind of show where that's going. And you'll see that overall over the last 7 years or 8 years, we're seeing that equalized tax rate going down. That's of course because our property values have gone up a lot in the last 2 or 3 years. And as there's more value to spread the tax levy across, the equalized tax rate kind of comes down. Doesn't mean your tax bill's going down, but that equalized rate based on your property value is coming down.
Yeah, so even if, you look at the beginning where it's 15 and now it's 12, if the value of your home went up.
And everyone's did, yeah.
So you could be multiplying a bigger number times 12, which
gets you almost to the same place,
15,
so yeah.
Small number times 15
yeah.
will give you, a number, and a big number times 12 will give you a number, and you got to be just careful of that. Look at your own individual tax bills and your value of your house and see what's happening.
Now you look like when we used to look 10, 12 years ago, you'd see that, property values didn't change very much, so you'd see that equalized tax rate would kind of reflect what your levy increase was. If your levy went up 3%, you'd see the equalized tax rate go up about 3%. So things are kind of flipped now because of property values going up so much. If you look at the tax levy increase that we've had in the district over the last 6 years, again, a pretty consistent number, always under 3. Rarely, one time it was under 2, but it's been pretty consistent over the years. And that's the allowed value that New York State allows us to increase the tax levy without a supermajority vote being required. So we recently have completed our tax levy limit calculation for next year. And this is, we feed these numbers into the state website, and it produces that 2.84 at the bottom. And that's the allowable increase that we can make with only a 50% majority vote being required. The board could always go above that, below that, but if you go above that, you need 60% approval rate to have your budget pass. So since February, I submitted that tax cap calculation, and it is finalized now at 2.84%. The governor put forth her proposal for the state budget, but that's not final. That's still being worked on in Albany. And I made some adjustments based on our capital project that's ongoing, so that, there's some expenses that go in the budget, but there's aid and things that compensate for that. So I did make those adjustments. We now stand at still a $1.1 million budget gap, where last time it was 1.4. So some of those changes cut down some of that gap. When I'm talking about, when I look at, where our revenues have been and what impact it's had on the district, foundation aid and our tax levy. Foundation aid is the largest aspect of state aid that we get, the largest part of it. And then our tax levy, those two things account for almost 80% of the revenue that comes into our school. And what we see is that that's been very stagnant, under 3% for 6 years now. So now CPI is 6, 7, 8%, and we've seen that for, over about a year now. And we've seen our budget, we're not increasing the budget too high. We're trying to control that as well, but we're trying to make do with this revenue that's very flat. And we're seeing everything that we deal with is, just like if you own your home and you're trying to buy materials for your home, services for your home, everything's going up 5, 10, 12, 15%. So that's been the thing that's been very difficult to deal with, and it's starting to catch up to us now, where we have to do maybe some further things to keep ourselves going. We also, when we look at controlling expenses and dealing with this, we could cut into our fund balance and say, let's just not have as much fund balance at the end of the year. But fund balance is something that we have to have. It's part of our long-term financial plan. We need to end the year with a certain amount of money that we can fund next year. We have carryover fund balance is listed as one of our revenues every year. We carry about enough money to get us through the first 3 months of the new school year, July, August, September, because there is nothing that comes into the district in those 3 months. We have a tiny bit of state aid, and taxes don't start being collected until October. So we need to have a fund balance that we end the year with, that we can start the next year with. If we don't, we'll have to do short-term borrowing. It's added expense for the district. Some districts do that. It's called tax anticipation notes. You do borrowings, you pay interest on those borrowings, you pay people to do the borrowings for you and put the bonds out there. And then when the taxes come due in October, you pay that money back. So we luckily have not had to do that because we have this plan in place. We also want to end the year fund balance so we can put money in that capital reserve for future projects. If we put a little bit of money in those capital reserves every year, when we want to have a capital project someday, we can do it and not have a tax impact because we have our unaided portion from the state saved already. So that's really important to us as well when we want to have capital projects done in the future. And then we want to strategically fund other reserves as needed to avoid other potential problems. Example, ERS and TRS retirement reserve accounts. We have reserves to, when there are sharp spikes in those rates that we incur, we don't have to really increase our taxes or anything else to get that money. We can access the reserves, get through that short-term spike in our increase in rates, and then when that's over, get through without making major changes in our tax levy. So currently we have a $1.1 million budget gap. If we wanted to just continue, the only thing we can do on the revenue side is really increase the levy. That would require a 6.29% increase in the tax levy. That would exceed the tax cap calculation, require 60% supermajority approval. My statement at the bottom is I don't feel this is excessive. I feel this is excessive in the current financial climate. Here's a time to pause and think about, am I correct in saying that, or is there a difference of opinion within this room? Do you want to be at 2.84, which is the allowable tax rate increase, or do you want to push beyond that and try and do something different at a supermajority vote level?
From my perspective, I think a good question from the board, even before you even think about this, is there another way to close the gap? Are there any other plans to do that that we could accomplish this year? I think John, in outlining that they're showing what's happening year after year, eventually something's going to happen. But is this the year, or are there other mitigation strategies we could do?
I think we have to look at.
Well, you got to see what those other are before you say whether they're good or bad.
I mean, I was just gonna say to John.
And he has them in his presentation, so it's not like, oh, we gotta wait till next month.
Yeah.
We can get into talking about
I
them.
was gonna say, John's statement, in this climate, everyone everyone in their personal life is cutting back or reallocating funds. I think it'd be really hard to do that, say, but we're not going to, we're just gonna.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, for years, we've always, stuck at or below the calculated tax cap figure. And, we've always taken, conservative approach. And, I mean, we do represent our community, and we do have to watch that. And as, Jim pointed out, everybody's paying a lot more. And we do realize that that is going to happen here. But I think this is the time that we really need as board members across Western New York and across the state is to ramp up our advocacy as far as getting some of this change, because we know this is not sustainable. If we continue with CPIs, above 5 and 6 and 7%, it's not going to take long before we're in a world of heat. And we already see that we're challenged, from a budget standpoint as far as what the state is returning to us as far as tax dollars in the form of foundation and building aid. So I would prefer to try to do some belt tightening,
Right.
and bring that number down. And,
Well,
I know you don't want to skimp on your children's education, but, we also have to remember
Well, I think-
that people need to maintain their own households as well, too.
and that'll be one thing that'll be important in John's presentation too, is what he's talking about, and I looked at John to confirm this, should not have any impact on programs and offerings to the district. Because then you start talking about a different thing. It might be class sizes change from 18 to 19. We're not going above. We're sticking to 24 or less unless you're in kindergarten and first grade, which is 20 or less. We're sticking to those numbers. We're not proposing changing those. And he's nodding his head yes. And then the other thing is you mentioned about, advocacy, which is good because both houses, the Senate and the Assembly have released it. They're looking to put funding for universal meals. This just came in today, which is why it's not in the presentation at 8 o'clock this morning. Both houses included funding for universal meals, CTE reimbursement increase, that's for career and tech programs. They look for pre-K funding changes. They reject the proposal for high-impact tutoring set aside, equalize capital or increase capital outlay to $250,000. We only have $100,000 in this project, so that would be something we really have to think about. Assembly rejects the retirement employment waiver and proposes pushing out the deadline for the zero emissions for buses. So the Assembly wants a longer timeline, not the one that's there. And the Senate rejects the zero emission report altogether, and it accepts the extension of the retirement waiver. So I don't see anywhere in any one of their bills additional funding for foundation aid that would be coming to the district. If the CTE reimbursement goes through, there would be a small amount, because right now we're reimbursed up to $30,000 of salary for BOCES programs. Would that be a significant amount? Absolutely not. It would be thousands of dollars, not even tens of thousands of dollars.
What are they,
I don't know. We just got this today. It's a
Oh,
quick
okay.
blurb, so I don't know what number they're using at all. But I think each house has a different amount that they want to go up.
I got something from NISBA saying that both houses are also including funding for the state education department to conduct a study on the foundation aid formula. Did you say that?
I did not say that
Yeah.
one, and that's what I've
So
heard
they are,
from a lot
they're
of it.
talking about it.
Yeah,
They just aren't
They
taking
want to put,
action.
they want to put
Yeah.
$1 million out
Right.
there
Yeah.
to
It's
look, to
$1
study
million.
the formula, to try to attempt to do something different with
Yeah.
it, because they recognize the numbers they're using, how long, how old they're using old data, and then depending on how that formula is made, how would that impact everyone? Because no one really wants to lose. Everyone wants to get a little bit, but how much would we get? And we've been given the minimum year after year after year by the state.
And when we were in Albany, when this generically came up, I think the response was, I forgot which senator it was, I think it may have been Ryan, that said, this is not the year to ask for more money. You're not getting any more money.
Yeah.
You can ask, but you're not getting it.
And I honestly think the state as a whole in fully funding the foundation aid, that's great for them to do, looking altruistic at the state, that's awesome. Hopefully it'll change from here on in for us after this year with what we've been having.
So that's good. I just want to make sure that this was not an avenue you wanted to go down with the tax levy increase, so that's good. That's information we needed.
Can I say something just for a
Yes.
second? Because I turned my microphone on. I think in other years too, I have advocated for that option of, when we are looking at losing programs and things that directly affect children, going past that number. I don't think it should be a scary number because it gives people the option to say, yes, we would pay more for
Right.
these programs. But this is the year, and so as long as we say we're not cutting programs,
Correct.
I think that's a very different year. But it isn't something we should just always write off because
I
we
agree.
do represent the community and
Yeah.
it does give the
Someday it may
community
be
that
appropriate.
option.
Yeah.
But if we could do it without that, this is the year to do that, for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
So again, looking at the revenue side, what we've done everything we really can. We can't really change any of these things, the revenue side, so we got to look at the expense side. There's no, like we said, there's no magic aid coming from New York State in their budget process. We don't anticipate that happening, so we got to go with what we have right here and move on. So when we look at the expense side, these are the top 5 things to look at. There's more, but we will look at, and we have been looking at enrollment and where kids are going to be next year. How many are leaving high school? How many are coming into high school? How many are moving up into the middle school? And getting a really good handle on those numbers with the principals and what they need for next year based on the enrollment next year.
And this is a question the public always asks us, and, when we've done reports on, with enrollment changes, how has staffing changed? And so that is one area that, with change in enrollment, to close the gap, will definitely have an impact.
Special education, same sort of thing. You're looking at the students, their needs, who's going to be here, who's graduating out, who's coming up next year, and what services they need, and what's the best way to deliver those services, the most cost-effective way to deliver those services. BOCES plays into that.
Just to make sure it clear, because we said it, just because we're looking at it, everyone will get the services that
Yeah.
are appropriate based on their IEPs and everything. We're not reducing or shortchanging people.
Right. BOCES expenses, reviewing all the different areas where we use BOCES for different services. We use them for career and tech, looking at what those numbers are, how many kids are going to be interested in those programs next year because they have an expense attached to them. We have not implemented any kind of hard line on how many kids we accept into those programs yet. We're not doing that yet, so, but we do look at those numbers and see what we have to allocate for BOCES for career and tech, and we do that every year.
And if a student wants to go to career and tech, they will be going.
We have not put limits on those at all. Reviewing transportation expenses, we do, of course, we do that. We look at the routes and trying to get the best, most effective way of transporting students. And that's, when you look at the growth areas of the budget, that one's been very in control for the last number of years, and I think we do a good job there. And in building and grounds, again, we do a lot of work in-house, which is great, but they still have to buy the materials, and that's, we have to buy the natural gas to heat the buildings and the utilities. Those are seeing a lot of increases, so we want to get good handles on what we're doing there. We have a new solar project that's operable at Marilla Primary, so that's going to help offset some of that electricity, we hope. And then there's another project in the works for the middle school to put solar panels in, so those are longer term. It's going to help our expenses there. But those are the primary focus. These are the big areas that we got to look at as an administrative group and make sure that we're hitting, right sizing for next year. We will have a budget, a capital outlay project in the budget. You could say this is maybe a way to reduce $100,000 out of the budget. However, this is one where we get 71% aid back. So if we got rid of this, we'd be saying no to $71,000 in state aid that they're willing to give us to get a project done, a small project. So I don't think I think it's a good value for our $29,000. We get $100,000 of work that the state reimburses us next year for. So what we look at for next year is the electrical panel at the Alma Primary Kitchen. It's in a really bad spot, It's really old, and we're going to try and relocate that, put it in a better spot so it's out of the way, and also, do some of the electrical work within that kitchen area. So that's the summer of 2024 that would be done. We talked about the expenses. Nothing really changed much here from last time. Retirement systems, sometimes we see big jumps. One's going down, one's going up. We spend more on teacher retirement system. That's going down. Employee retirement system is going up a little bit. Those really offset, and there'll be almost no change to those things next year, which is good news. And health insurance, 3 to 5% increase. We're probably in the 3 to 4. We'll probably really see, because we've had, claims are really good right now. We're not seeing big problems there. So we should be able to control those costs pretty well again next year. So today, currently, with the 1.1 million, here's where the expenses are. The last line you might notice is 18% increase on debt. But that's related to that capital project. We do have new debt payments coming on, but that's offset by state aid payments as well. So it increases the budget, but it doesn't really have an impact overall, because we have matching revenues for that. And here's
obviously from the few slides ago, those numbers will change as we bring into a balanced budget.
Yes. Here's our revenues growing by 3.45, so we'll have our expenses probably growing by about the same amount, 3.45, to make everything balance out.
Exactly the same to have it balanced.
Yeah. And I did bump up, you see already, I bumped up the sales tax estimate, because we've seen the history that we're bringing in more than usual, and that makes sense because CPI is up, so people are spending more money, and we get more sales tax. So that does make sense, so we're going to bump up our estimate for that to show that. And on the other sources, you see 231. That's where some of that capital project money comes from. But there's a capital transfer that's part of our financing plan that they called capitalized interest. So we're going to move some money from the capital fund into the general fund to help pay for that debt service that we have. And then the tax levy 2.84. That's what we're working off, because that's the allowable percentage increase. So right now we're at that, and we will come back next month and have one that shows a 0 in the difference.
And the blue area is really the most important thing of all these slides. It's, one little line, but it's the core mission of providing instruction. And that's where we will be having the same programs. That's our goal. We'll make sure that happens coming back with the budget.
So May 16th is the vote date for this year. We'll have the Proposition 1 will be our general fund budget. We'll looking to replace our standard 4 buses. We have about 40 in the fleet, so if you do 4 per year, that's replacing a bus every 10 years and getting 10 years, which is reasonable, and that's the plan we've been doing for years now, and it's worked out well. And we're looking to put on Proposition 3, I like the board's opinion on this. We are looking to establish a new repair reserve. We have, at the bottom there, you see we have 2 current repair reserves. One is almost gone. We've used it for different things. These are great to have when you have those unexpected repairs that come up. We've had a boiler go down at Wales, $40,000, comes out of nowhere. Instead of me having to build repair money into the budget, which we want to not do big things like that, we have these reserves and we can use them as needed for those unexpected things. We had a sewer line go in the back of the building here, but to start a school in September. You don't plan on those things, they just happen. We go to the board, say we need this money, we want to access this reserve for whatever amount of money it is. We pull the money out of the reserve, and it's there when we need it. So it's a good insurance thing. So we always like to work and have 2 working
It used to be 3,
reserves.
We used to carry 3 all the time.
Yep. But this would be funding not to exceed 450. We'd fund it with end of year fund balance. If it takes 5, 10 years to fund, that's okay. There's no tax impact because we're not increasing the tax levy to fund this. We're doing this with money that if we have it left over at the end of a year, we can put a little into this reserve and kind of tuck it away. It's establishing a place to put the money in the future if we choose to do that. And then there are 2 board seats open, and now we have at-large voting, so you don't have to pick which one candidates will run for. You just put your name in that you want to run for the board, and wherever you fall in voting, you will get one of the 2 spots if you're a top 2 finisher in votes. So you have until April 17th to put a petition in for that, April 17th at 5 o'clock. And you can see our district clerk, Nora Specht, if you want more information on that, how to do that. We always put the reminder of our governor's contact information if you like that. We have our representatives, we have their information here as well if you'd like to have that. And this presentation is on our website right now if you want to review it again. And we're left, April 12th, we'll be back here talking with our latest budget presentation at that time. We'll have a budget hearing on May 9th and then the budget vote on May 16th. Any other questions at this time? I have 2 minutes. Perfect. Wow.
I just want to say this because I think, I say it every year, but I still think it's important because every year when we watch these presentations, we see numbers, we compare it to recent numbers, we talk about tightening our belt, but ever since I've been on the board, we have sat here and we have cut programs, we have cut things, and those things don't come back. So when we say the purpose of all this is tightening the belt, tightening the belt, tightening the belt, sometimes I think it would be easy to look at it and say, oh, I'm sure there's a lot they could do to tighten the belt, but that's cumulative. So all the years of things that we've already done, we're building on to still try to maintain it. We have never sat here and said, we have this pot of money. What would be great to do for the kids of Iroquois? And, years ago, I think that was a little bit different. And so I think that people need to remember cumulatively how much has been tightened to the belt before we're here still trying to hang on to it. So just to reiterate that advocacy is important and having that long-term perspective of it. It's a sad thing that we never get to say what would be good for us to do.
And it's more important now than ever for that advocacy, because if they're going to have that, where they re-look at the formula, get in your voice, that when you look at the formula, you have to take care of districts like ours. Because year after year, we've been getting the minimum from the state and other districts, if you look at their runs, are significantly different. Any other questions, comments about this? Because if not, I think we have some people that want to say something.
I just have one, one question, Doug. With the budget, I see that neither house is on board with the governor's proposal to eliminate the cap on charter schools and to allow charter schools that have been closed or revoked their licenses to reopen. Is any idea why this is being pushed? Because the last thing, I would want to see in our district is a charter school. It's very expensive for the residents of a district when a charter school opens within that district.
I think this is more an upstate than downstate, from what I was hearing. For a little bit, I might have been talking about, if I can talk about it now, because I was in Albany for the NISCUS conference. They had some conversations on that, and really they don't want the cap, they're not looking at the cap change, but they're looking to allow more charter schools in New York City, and not bring them around here.
So that cap applies statewide, which means if New York City is allowed more charter schools, it's going to reduce less statewide. I'm good with that.
I was pleased to hear that piece too. So you can't have more in the state, but you can have more. I think there's a limit how many you can have in New York City. They're looking to expand the amount in New York City. Yeah,
the only thing that I worry about if they're increasing the percentage for New York City, how many years before they decide to increase the percentage in the other areas?
Okay. Well, with that, let's move into our regular meeting.
Thank you so much, John.
Call that to order. Welcome to all who have come to observe the meeting of the Iroquois Central School District's Board of Education. There are 2 periods of recognition of guests listed on the meeting agenda. The first is for comments regarding agenda items. The second is for topics not on the agenda. Speakers may offer comments related to school operations and programs, but the board cannot hear personnel complaints against any individual associated with the school system. Please address these concerns to the appropriate administrator. If you wish to be recognized, please fill out the appropriate form and turn it into the district clerk. As per policy 1514, public participation at board meetings, public comment by district residents is limited to 15 minutes total unless the board suspends this limit. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single topic unless the board also waives this limitation. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not engage in dialogue with you this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and your celebrations this evening. Please be advised that this meeting is being live streamed and the recording will be posted on the Iroquois website. And with that, I would like to ask Xander Ferguson from Wales Primary to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job.
Okay, Xander, if your parents want, you can come up and take a picture with me. Usually that's the highlight, right?
Nice job.
You ready? All right. Oh, perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Rich.
Good job.
All right, and then I see Mr. Genestri is here, so I'll ask him to come up and introduce our high school students who are going to be giving us the student report from the high school today.
Good evening, everybody, and John, thank you for lifting this up for me. I appreciate that. So I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education for giving us the opportunity to talk about our programs at the high school level, okay, and to have the ability or the opportunity for these wonderful students that I have here with me today to speak about our World Languages program. So tonight we're going to focus on the opportunities that exist within our World Language program. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Megan and Alex, who will tell you about our World Languages.
So, hi, my name is Alexander Zverev. I'm a senior here, taking last course of Spanish. I'm working towards my Spanish seal of biliteracy. So I'll just start off by talking about what led me into taking foreign language for such a long time. I know a lot of people, they seem to quit after a few years, but from the beginning, I was my parents were born in Ukraine, and I kind of got a sort of cultural understanding about cultures outside of the U.S. That kind of led me to an interest in different cultures, languages, and different interests around the world. And this sort of interest kind of led me to explore more about foreign languages, and specifically Spanish, which I really do love. We mostly talk about the different cultures, traditions in Spanish-speaking countries, which I have taken great interest in. All of my teachers, they really encourage looking deeper into the heritage and cultural traditions of Spanish-speaking countries, and that really helps towards my endeavor towards the Spanish seal of biliteracy. But one thing I do really like about the Spanish courses here, and possibly even the French courses, the Spanish teachers really encourage talking in Spanish and French amongst the students and the teachers themselves, which really sparks kind of creativity and interest in learning more about their language, learning more about the world itself, because it's really helpful to really know about different cultures and languages. And being able to even speak to other people, understand people from other parts of the world, that's really gratifying. And Megan's going to talk about it too. But I really am interested in being a global citizen that understands people from a diverse population. That's really the main points of why I take Spanish and why I look forward to doing the seal of biliteracy. And yeah, one thing I do like also about taking a foreign language is that the one-on-one aspect of teachers, between you and teachers, you get to learn more things about the world and you get to learn more about like the culture that exists in our population, and I get to learn like new things that I never knew before about like the diversity of our population, and yeah, it's a really gratifying experience just simply being in a Spanish class, learning about different parts of the world. So that's one thing I really like about taking Spanish here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Eckinger. I'm a junior, and have the aim to get the seal of biliteracy for French. More of like what Alex had said, the foreign language programs offer a sense of gratification that sometimes lacks in other subjects, where you have an opportunity to communicate with groups of people that you otherwise would most likely never be able to. And I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to go on both the Europe trip and the Quebec trip this past weekend. And it's one of the most gratifying things when you speak to someone in a foreign language, for me French, and then they respond back to you in French. That's like a job well done on both you and your teacher, because that means you did well enough that they didn't realize you were an English speaker. So that's one of the most prideful things that can happen. And so that is just a sense that subjects may otherwise lack. And that makes you realize you can use that in an everyday life that maybe another subject you won't use every day, not in the same way. And we also, in the French program, have the opportunity to have pen pals, thanks to Ms. Gasky and Madame Vermeeren, who taught in France, which is something that's really amazing, because we can talk to our teachers in French, and it's not the same as talking to someone in French that's the same age as you are, who have the same experiences, or maybe different experiences, and that's just particularly amazing because they learn about you, and believe me, they have a lot of questions, and you get to learn about them. And in a lot of ways, we're very different, but in important ways, we're very similar, which I think is important for people to learn, is that there are many ways where people are just the same all across the world. And additionally, to learning about other cultures, we, in the French classes, are encouraged to celebrate the holidays. We got to celebrate King's Day, and we made the cakes, and we had a whole day celebrating that holiday. We spend units learning about holidays. At Christmas time, we spend a week learning about what they do in France for Christmas. And not just in France, in French-speaking countries, because it's not the same. Different countries who speak French have different celebrations. And the more you can learn about cultures and their practices, the more worldly you become, and that's super important. And so I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to learn a language and let it become such a big part of my life, because many kids, we just talked to the 6th graders today about taking French, and the 6th graders a lot of times don't realize how big of a decision that is. They just are like, oh, I'm going to take Spanish because so-and-so is taking Spanish, but really it has a major effect on your life, and different paths that you might not have had otherwise become open to you. And I don't regret any day that I took French. I'm grateful all the time for that, and I'm sure Alex feels the same way about Spanish. But that's just an opportunity that I think kids who dropped the language miss out on, especially because it becomes super important, and I don't know, it's a big part of my life. I think that's been it.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I do like to see how our foreign languages have progressed since I've been in school, and I think that having that seal of biliteracy is just an incredibly wonderful thing for you to go after, and I'm so proud to be able to say that we have students who are doing it and are really excited about it. You guys both spoke so well about the different experiences that you're having as a result of sticking through and learning a language. I took French, and I still can't say much beyond my numbers and
and a few things that I never learned how to say properly in the first place. So hats off to you. I should have taken Spanish because I did end up living on the Mexican border for a while, and probably would have served me better. But so congratulations to both of you. So it's a wonderful accomplishment that you guys are going after. Our next thing is going to be a presentation about our unified sports program and some students who went to the Special Olympics. So Mr. Lauber, if you'd come up and introduce the students and let us rejoice in their accomplishment.
Let's make sure she works. Yeah, she does. Oh, wrong way. Hello, everybody. Sean Lauber. I'm a special education teacher in the high school.
My name is Brad Kingston.
So we're here to talk to you about a bunch of things today, actually. And if you look at our first picture, there might be somebody in that picture you recognize.
Gunner.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That young gentleman in the blue suit, Gunnar Haverhill, was a school board member here, and he's kind of the right-hand man for Chuck Schumer, so it was nice when we went to Capitol Hill Day. He actually gave us a private tour of the Capitol building, so it was really, really neat. And if you know Gunnar, very passionate about everything, and Gunnar was one of the school board members that helped us start Unified here 7 years ago, so very cool. So Capitol Hill Day, what that is. Special Olympics USA, for the last 20 years, goes to the Capitol Hill, and we meet with congressmen, House representatives, and senators to lobby for more funding for unified sports. And as you see on the bottom little note there, in New York State, we have 240 schools that now have Unified Championship Schools programming, which reach over 10,000 athletes and partners. And the best part of it is Iroquois is one of the best. And when I say that, that's because these two young people did most of the talking meeting with the representatives. I was just kind of there as the big dad, just keeping an eye on them. Right, Brad?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Did he do a good job watching you?
I don't think I did. But we were the first school in New York State ever to be invited. So I always say a lot of we're the first. We are the first to ever be invited. So on the left you see our team. There were two different initiatives that we actually lobbied for. Number one, unified sports to increase funding, and also a health initiative. So our team was divided into two different groups when we met with the representatives. Again, you saw our little private tour there with Gunnar. He made us go out back in the private section to get the perfect picture for Twitter, because he knows I have a lot of Twitter feeds. And the gentleman that is standing to me on the far right, that's actually Tim Shriver, who is the chairman of Special Olympics. He is the head man for Special Olympics International, who came and met with us at a little meet and greet, and that was pretty special for us because you really don't meet the guy who runs all of it, like in the world. So it was quite an experience. Brad, what was probably the best part of Capitol Hill Day, that little thing we did?
Well, I started a museum. It's my favorite part because I like dinosaurs. And I first started at Chuckboy Park. It's like it's a very good movie. You guys need to watch it, but it's very cool. And my second favorite about Washington D.C. like doing meeting, like yeah, stuff like that.
And what was the best part of our meetings that you had to ask for at the end of every meeting? You had to ask for more what?
Can need more money.
More money.
Yeah.
And Brad was given that task to actually tell them, we want more money. Jess, how about you? What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was going to the Senate gallery.
So Gunnar gave us that private tour, but he also took us into the gallery, and we actually watched a Senate vote in Chuck Schumer's private booth. So we sat there, and he explained everything that was going on, and we saw the senators coming in, casting their votes. And like for me, a history guy, I was like, oh my God, I'm literally sitting here. So that was cool.
Awesome.
So now, unified sports all together. So we are a unified championship school. I'm going to have Brad, can you kind of tell us what are the sports that we offer here, buddy?
Yeah.
What are those bad boys?
So we do bowling, and we do basketball and volleyball, bocce, and flag football, and that is we do good in Iroquois. Firstly is in sports. We do more better than for Iroquois. Like is what is it?
We're number one.
We number one.
So actually, Brad is holding our Section 6 title. We won the title a week ago in bowling because of these folks. The best part about this is in Western New York, there's only one other school that does as much as we do. And we compete with Cheektowaga a lot to make sure we're number one. But as I came and talked to you, I think in the fall about adding bocce. Bocce is going to be a formal sport next fall. Cool. It will follow the fall season. Special Olympics is having right now 15 schools. Last year we had 4. We have 15 schools that are going to pilot as a varsity sport. And then in 2024 it'll be a formal New York State sanctioned varsity sport. The other stuff is added on. We are still going to do volleyball in the fall as well as bocce, just because I love volleyball and I don't want to give it up because it's a great team sport. And right now we're in talks with the Buffalo Bills. They approached me to try to start a flag football league in November and December. So basically what takes place is these guys never rest. It is year-round because we also are the only school district that runs a summer program. We run a 4-day summer camp. So our sports, and you see all those pictures. I'm going to come up and point real quick. Probably the greatest picture that we have. All these are great. But if you don't know this gentleman, that's Gavin Croce. That's him down here. Gavin finally came back to school. He had not been attending school for the last 3 years because of COVID and the fears. But day one when he walked in, I said, "You're going to be on our team." And him and Brahana Sawyer actually won the bocce tournament. So it's pretty spectacular to have kids who haven't had that opportunity to play sports. They're all playing sports. Cool. So our program has exploded with that. Now our club. I know I put in to the school board to have a formal club with an advisor, which is me. And our club president is Jess. So if Jess, you can kind of fill them in on what our club does.
So for our club, we have an event a week during every month. And there are photos up there, like the hearts on the bottom left. That was our Valentine's Day one. And then we also have like parties, like we have our Thanksgiving one up there, and then our Christmas. And then we also do an inclusion week and then we top it off with like a basketball pep rally. And then during that whole week, we do a bunch of like different activities with inclusion.
This year it's May 26th is the pep rally. So that week is it's called Spread the Word Inclusion Week. Where we do a bunch of different activities, and Jess kind of runs it all. I just kind of sit back and watch, so she does a lot of the work. You also might notice on the left there the polar plunge that we do every year. Our team expanded. For the last couple of years, we've had about 20 people involved. This year we had 53. We did place 3rd overall. We weren't the school challenge winners, but we did raise over $21,000 for Special Olympics. Which doing those kind of things is why we get invited to like the Buffalo Bills camp and all that stuff. But that was pretty phenomenal. National Banner Recognition. We were the first school in New York State to earn National Banner Recognition. The woman in the red and white over to the far left, that is Stacy Hangsterman. She is the president and CEO of Special Olympics New York. She came here and actually presented us the banner. We are up for renewal. I met with Stacy and Mike Peglici, who is our director for our section, and already met with them and went over a bunch of our things because what they want to make sure, number one, I can actually show you that. Number 10 on the bottom, sustainability, is that the district actually we are self-funded. We're doing everything we need to do to continue the program. Everything else you see up there, we do 10 times more than any other school. So in April, I meet with them again and actually fill out the application, reapply to keep the banner per se. Again, we'll be the first school district in New York State to reapply for National Banner Recognition. And the bonus is going to Washington, D.C. with both of them. I kind of got you're going to be good. Which is nice. These two folks have also been helping me with this program. I know I put in a new extramural activity for the school board to look at and approve. We have started, I shouldn't say we have started a middle school extramural program. The last 3 weeks, we have done it, and every Wednesday after school from 2:45 to 4 o'clock, we meet and do different sports, different activities with the kids down there. Right now, we have about an average of 13 kids who come. I have reached out to the phys ed staff and SGB, and they're going to get us more kids to be part of it. But we did basketball, kickball, and today was flag football, which was flag football fun.
Yeah, football is very fun.
Yeah, it was a good time today. So I do take some of the high school kids down to kind of model what the kids need to do, and it's turned out really well. Callista Miss and Angela George are the two people who are going to run this. I've been going down the last 3 weeks and kind of saying, this is kind of our expectations for Unified and how you should do things. But basketball starts in a week, so I'll be stepping back and letting those ladies kind of take the reins. The future is really the key, folks, up there, and hopefully with your support, we'll continue to grow. We are only one of 2 schools in Western New York that have a middle school program. Again, it's us in Cheektowaga. The problem with Brian at Cheektowaga, he played volleyball for me at Maryville, so he wants to compete against me constantly to try to do better. So we keep one up ourselves all the time. But as I told the supervisors, we really want to try to get a club started down there, a formal club like we have in the high school. Unified PE is a Special Olympics sponsored program where they literally come in and teach PE teachers how to run a unified phys ed classes, which I've already told them, most of these guys are already fully included in PE, but it's not called Unified PE, but we pretty much have it in the high school. And lastly, Western New York is really starting to talk about creating actually a modified unified program. So our sports are all varsity level, but we're talking about really trying to create 7th and 8th grade kids playing unified sports and having teams at that level. Our next goal within the next couple of years is actually get it all the way down to the primary buildings. So kids know starting there, there's clubs, there's sports for them to be part of all the way through. Because it really, as my phrase is, it is life altering what happens with Unified. So that's kind of us. Those are just a lot of pictures from all our separate meetings from the Capitol building, and like Brad said, the museum was really cool when he got to see the dinosaur. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that is good.
Nice. Well, the board does have awards for you. Our board recognition award for each of the students. Come on over.
Congratulations. You're being awarded.
Congratulations. And thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. It's been fun. Oh, yeah.
Super proud of you.
Got to get pictures. I know. Life, pictures.
Where? That's good. I think that's that well would probably be better, or by the flagpole. Okay.
You know where I go. I'm sorry. Trying to do that in all those pictures.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Very much.
Good job, thank you.
Okay. And that brings us to item 8, board discussion and news worth sharing. Well, we just gave the award to that. So that brings us to the ambassador reports. Does anybody have any reports from their schools? Okay. And ECASB reports. Has anybody been to any workshops, meetings sponsored by ECASB?
Ours got canceled.
Yours got canceled? Okay, and I know, Jim, you have a legislative team meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be looking for that report in April. Anything else? Okay. And then our community roundtable, we did have a couple of parents who attended, and we talked about issues with communication. We talked about the school website, and you're going to be talking about are you going to be talking about that today?
For which one?
The,
Buses?
no, the app, the app.
Communication app.
Not-
This one.
Okay, and then, we had a parent ask about, some of the, social studies programs and asking, if we could do more with, teaching more about the Constitution. I'm trying to think, what else? I gave my notes to Nora.
You talked about helping students at both ends.
That's right, yep, yes.
In other words, how to make sure that the students who need the support are getting it, but the students who are higher achievers, how to continue to challenge them.
Right. I knew there was something I was forgetting.
Yeah, what I had was, keep working on the website to try to make it more streamlined, easier to find things, strategic plan, keep moving forward on how communication is going and improving, like, we talked about getting into the app, curricular, looking at career paths, trying to find more resources for students as they go through high school, know what's there for college, know what's there for careers, making sure they know about CTE, career technical programs that they can get into, and the other one was about the Constitution.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to the parents that came. That meeting is always, we never know who's going to show up and what issues you're going to want to talk about. And it was just a really nice, small group, but we got to hear some of the things that are going on in the community and what people are interested in. So thank you to those who attended. That brings us to our strategic plan survey, and we need to talk about what we want to do with that, folks.
Yeah, and quickly, just to remind everyone, we did use PLC. Dr. Dudick did reach out to get a quote. After aid, it'd be about $5,000 to use the same survey. One key aspect in that is it would provide the exact same, so you can actually compare actual data from one year to the next, because anytime you do something new, it creates something new, and you have to try to, how do they parallel, and this would be in there with that. And there would be a survey for students, staff, parents, and community.
Yeah, I would advocate very strongly that I think we need to do this, because I think if we don't, we initially started with the idea of being reflective on ourselves as a school district. When we then create the survey ourselves, we're making the questions, are we leading the questions, are we being biased in questions? And we really wanted to hold that, as a board, wanted to hold that mirror up to everybody and the administration, and that's, you put yourselves out there to do that, not knowing what you're going to get back. I think that with all the time and effort that's been put in by all the community members and district members and board members on that, it's important to see where we are now. And not only that, but then the workload that would put, I know that we have people in our district that could do that. However, what aren't they doing? Nobody's coming in saying, I don't have enough to do with my job. So I have concerns about that and the costs of that too. And that piece is really important, that comparison, I think. So I think it's money well spent.
Yeah, I think that we had an expectation when we delved into this strategic plan and made that commitment, that we knew that there would be these surveys and that there would be an expense to them, but that at the time we felt that this was important work to be done and that the follow-up surveys would be just as important. And I would say that we should be following through with the commitment that we made. Otherwise, why did we do it? So.
Okay, we'll move forward with that then. I just see a lot of head nodding.
Yep.
Head nodding. It's really not a vote, and the board members would have to take. We're just clear on the direction. Dr. Dudick's been the liaison, so she'll reach out, let them know. And probably the survey would be very late May, early June.
Okay. Not on the agenda originally, but added after it went out, we did receive communication from Linda Hoffman, who is the NISBA Area 1 Director. She is retiring at the end of her, the end of her term, which is coming up. And we did receive notification from David Lowry with a letter of intent to run for that position. You may remember David Lowry, he was a former board member here at Iroquois. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that he was planning on running for that position. He is asking the board, he has to have 5 boards recommend him, or write a letter of recommendation coming from the board president, and I would like permission from the rest of the board to write that letter of recommendation for David Lowry.
Yes, yep.
All right, thank you very much. So I will take care of that this week. And that brings us to our superintendent report, unless someone else has something that they would like to bring up that didn't get to me in time for the agenda. Anyone? Okay.
All right, superintendent's report, response to last month's public comments. We did have one parent come in and talk about the state regulation that's coming about changing the mascot. She spoke well about it and talked to her afterwards, and she understands that this is not an Iroquois initiative, that this is a state initiative. She just is passionate. She went to school here, had children that went to school here, and really enjoys how we've tried to honor through the years, but understands the uncomfortable position the district is in with that. So I guess in keeping the light of that, still haven't heard back from any of the nations. The time is moving forward. They're still in the public comment for the state on this in meetings with the state education department people. What they have in place is what they have in place. They're not planning on making any changes, at least from none of the comments they've had so far. So we'll be looking at that. We do have a timeline of what we would know, and once the regulation's in place, unless there's an agreement in place somewhere, I'd be looking forward to putting forward a plan to the board to adopt by the end of the year. And we jumped just a little bit about my student cabinet, because I was talking to them about this, of how they felt. We spent almost an hour talking about it and what their feelings were, because I had certain aspects I think, ooh, this would be a good way to do the plan. And I really enjoy talking to them, because they're like, well, Mr. Schofield, we think the community should do this, and we think this should happen, and these aspects, and we have to be careful here. So really in talking to them, although they'd like to keep it, they really understand the changing of it, and they had great aspects of developing the plan. So there will be, even in the plan, there will be student input of how that plan is developed. So that it was a great conversation with them. Moving back up to the public comments, this really wasn't a public comment. It was just a letter I received from an Alma student. It's a primary student, and I just wanted to make sure eloquently written. And she just talked about how she would like uniforms within the building, and she eloquently put that forward. And I promised her I would tell the board, so I am moving forward and making sure the board knows of that. And congratulations to her on being an advocate, which goes part of the strategic plan of teaching students to have a voice for what they would like. So that is part of the strategic plan, and we're following through on that. Capital project update. So it's been very frustrating, because we had the electricians, their company, that became defunct. And that was back in December, and we're like, okay, we'll put it out to bid. We're working with the surety or the bonding company. And, you would think, okay, there's a lot of companies here and they'd be jumping at it. But with where they are, with the number of employees and finding that, the workload they've been having, it's been very difficult. I expected to have a different thing talking about today, but I'm glad to say that there was a company that the surety did send a letter of intent to. So hopefully that will be moving forward sooner than later, because that intent allows them to put all their bonding and everything in place so they can actually be awarded the contract. So that's great news. So between the last 4 hours, I went from a low to a high, so that's great. We're moving forward on across the road in order to get the aid and everything appropriate. There's a sidewalk that still has to be in place. You'll see a change order for that coming up to make sure that requirement of the state comes in. And in really looking at the district, the main campus, entrance number 1, which is by the bus garage, that needs to be widened. There really seems to be a traffic jam there. Will it fix it? No. Will it make it better? Yes. So we're going to have coming in, it'll be 1 lane, leaving, there will be a left turning lane and a I'd like a right turning lane. Can't have a straight there because there's nothing across the road. So I don't get any ideas there, but it'll be a left and a right, and hopefully that'll flow the traffic and make it less congested. And everyone just be polite there, let people go. And yeah, and for all those parents that are driving their kids to school, Bob, we do have buses you can put your child on. Oh, your son has a license now. Okay, I'm cheering as he went out the house. So that's for the capital project. Strategic plan facilities, I am going to turn this over to John because he has put out the information to have a committee. People from all different aspects of the community, stakeholders have come in, and go ahead, John.
Yeah, the update really is that we have the meeting schedule that's been submitted to everyone who put in or put their name in to participate in the facilities committee. So we have put email out to those people and shared the meeting dates with them. And I think we have at least one board member that may be participating. Two.
I think that's one thing you could ask tonight. Are there some couple board members that would be interested in it?
Who is participating from the board? So we got two.
I said that I would do it if you needed somebody, but I think that we have several people that really would like to be on it, so I will relinquish so that they can participate if they wish.
Who else would want to be on that, I guess? Okay. So how many, so three is all the max we get four if we wanted to, right?
No.
Four we do not want, because that gets a
We have
quorum,
three, so
and
we
then
got
you have the
three
wrong type of discussion.
here.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll step back, so they can do it.
okay, so we got our three, okay. And those meetings will begin next week, Thursday. And that's about the only update I have on that right now.
And they're every Thursday starting next week for the next?
Not every Thursday, no.
Okay, but that's on the website?
I did not put the schedule on the website. I sent the schedule to the people who requested to be on the committee.
Okay, so let's get this schedule out to these two.
And it's still open. If people want to put their name in now, we're taking people, if they want to submit their name and email address at our website, they can do so.
Just to clarify, it's going to be Jim and Bob, not Chuck?
And Chuck.
And Chuck.
Chuck's off.
Yeah.
And Chuck's off.
Chuck's off.
It depends.
Okay.
I mean,
Then two is,
I'll do it. If not,
not required then.
We have two representatives.
a committee with,
Two is fine.
with board members.
Two is fine.
Okay, all right.
We'll keep you as an alternate in case one can't show up.
Sure.
You guys better be there.
I need more meetings.
Anything else with the facilities committee, John?
No,
All right.
favorite topic.
He's also going to talk about some electric buses, not whether they're good or bad, but just some stuff he's discovered. And remember, I talked about the Assembly and the Senate and I have the sheet here, that one, the Assembly looked to extend the deadline. We're not talking about that. And the Senate who's looking to reject it altogether. But how does this affect, just financially, not whether it's good or bad, but just financial aspects of the
So
district?
something to think about when you're in the community talking about electric buses, I guess. Every district in New York State gets a transportation aid ratio. And if you're a rural, low-wealth district, you can be at 90%. That's the most you can get. So if you spend $1, you get 90 cents back from the state the next year as aid. So those districts are definitely in a different spot. We are at 59%. So if we spend $1, we get 59 cents back next year. Big problem is when you are mandating electric buses being purchased, and the governor has a plan right now that says in 2027 you have to begin, any vehicle you buy has to be electric, and by 2035 your entire fleet should be changed over to electric. So is that feasible? I don't know. I'm not here to debate that part of it. But when we buy a bus, and the buses are quite a bit more expensive, almost double what a gas or diesel bus is, we will get a lot less aid back on that purchase than another district that gets 90% aid. So just be aware of that. I wouldn't call it an unfunded mandate, but it's not equally funded mandate. That's going to come down. So districts like us that are lower on that reimbursement rate are going to pay more for essentially the same bus. There's going to be more local share that we have to pick up because the state's not going to reimburse as much as they would for some other districts. So just keep that in mind. And then that can also they're also going to make a change to how they reimburse buses. They usually do 5 years right now on gas and diesel buses. They probably, for their own, to make sure they can pay for this, they're going to make a 12-year payback. So do we want to do, when we do our borrowing for buses, do we want to, we're doing 5 years right now, and that matches up with our aid payments nicely, 5 years, 5 years. If they're reimbursing over 12 years, does it make sense to take out a bond for 12 years for a bus that may last 10, 11, I don't know how long. So that's in our consideration. And that gap between what we pay for that bond and what we get reimbursed is going to be bigger because these buses cost more. That's going to create an exclusion that can now be put on our tax cap calculation, and it's going to, in theory, it'll increase our allowable tax increase that we can do, because we're going to be paying more for these buses than we have in the past. So these are all things to consider and be aware of.
Yeah, John, and I know you just touched on it briefly, and it's probably premature, but the useful life of these buses, I mean, right now, we're finding, with ours, we're turning them over every 10 years.
10 or 11, yep.
So,
No one has long-term data because no one's had one of those buses for more than 2 years, probably 3 years at this point.
So we have no idea how long the battery packs last.
No data on that.
Good stuff.
Nope.
Great.
But we know that in this climate where we are, road salt, that the chassis is the thing that lasts about 10 years or 11 years, and that's not going to change with an electric bus, I don't think.
No, and that's an interesting aspect, because buses usually look very good when you look at them, no matter how old they are, because as a regular car might rust, if there's a rust on it, it's not fix the rust hole, it's replace the panel. So when you're talking about keeping buses longer because of the financing, the maintenance cost goes up because you have to fix them in a certain way, whereas before, if you see a bus that's aging out because maybe it's getting more corroded than another one, you would get rid of that bus first. Well, now it reduces our options, and the more options you reduce, the less fiscally responsible you can be, or it's harder to be fiscally responsible because you have to take care of these. It's frustrating.
Do we know who is pushing this all-electric agenda in Albany? Because it just seems like a switch was turned, and all of a sudden we're, going to put all of our eggs in one basket, and everybody's going to, be on electric.
I don't know. I mean, the initial announcement and everything came from the governor's office.
Yeah.
So is it the governor herself, or is it someone behind the governor that is advocating and has her ear? I don't know.
I mean, at this point in time, I'm wondering if they're actually really serious about this, or is this, more politics? Because to be honest with you, it's causing a lot of angst with a lot of school boards and school board members across the state.
Well, it's not even the school.
We just got done with a budget presentation, that's gonna, show that we're gonna be in dire straits as time goes on with the CPI where it's at. And now we're, looking at doubling the cost of our buses, increasing the reimbursement rate by more than twice. It just doesn't make any sense how we can continue to educate our children and operate the facilities at the same time.
I think it's not only the buses in schools, but I also think it's the construction, the purchasing of houses, or building new houses, because in the governor that we really don't deal with, but they're talking about having the new houses be completely electrical. And the more and more you make this way, the greater and greater demand on the grid that there is. And there was different people around me that were talking about how they're trying to push through initiatives or actions of getting more solar farms and things on place. So the grid has power supplementing into it at multiple locations. So
they haven't figured out how to get all of that energy efficiently back into the grid yet. They have running into problems with that with a lot of the third-party producers right now.
Yes, and so depending on who you talk to, do people have a plan? Yeah, people have a plan. Will that plan work? How fast can they implement it? I mean, transformers alone, you can't get a transformer. I should say you can, but it's very difficult.
I was gonna say, and when we were in Albany talking, whether it was a Democrat or Republican, they didn't really state whether they were for or against it, but they pretty much openly admitted on either side, they have no idea how it's gonna work. And their exact word was, we kind of create a disaster and we try to figure out how to fix it later. So they don't know how
We
it's
can't
gonna
afford
work.
to do that, I'm sorry.
Well, no, not.
I mean, our legislators, they need to stop playing
But I
these games.
think that's why both the Assembly, the Senate wanted to limit it, and the Assembly wants to push it back. They really don't know how it's gonna work.
My concern was that when we were in Albany, one legislator did say, because the question was brought up, well, this kind of budget expense does have to go to our community to vote on. And our community can vote no. And what happens when you have a community that says, no, we don't want you to expend this kind of money on school buses, so we vote no to this proposition? What happens then? Because we have this mandate from the state saying we have to do it, the community's saying we're not going to let you use the money for it, and the response was, then the governor already has a plan to come in and take away our local control. That's concerning to me. It seems like a no-win situation for us on a school board. But I have a question regarding, in your long-term planning then, when you're looking at budgets down the road, because I know you're not looking at just next year's budget, you look at budgets for multiple years. Where in this do we start building in for creating the power supplies and building those in? Does that come before the bus?
So part of what the news that
The
came out.
charging stations, yeah.
The news that came out today, when we're talking about those Senate and Assembly proposals for the budget, they're talking about the zero-emission bus reporting. The governor had said next year they want school districts to start reporting where they are on the path to getting electric buses. So you are supposed to start doing power studies. What's the incoming power near your district? What's your timeline for capital projects to put the lines in that you need in the parking lot to charge these buses? Oh, you don't want to hear this? Oh my gosh, thank you.
This is how we get you guys to your.
It's a school night, they have homework.
Okay. You're missing out.
Be sure to stream it later.
Yeah. But the governor wanted to start reporting next year on how you're going to accomplish this goal that she has. The Senate and Assembly are saying we want to push that down the road, so we don't want to start that next year. So that's a good indication that they're kind of kicking this down the road. And the 2027 date, even by the bus companies have the most to gain from this, they're going to make the most money. They're saying we can't do that. We can't make that many buses statewide. It's not feasible. So it will be pushed down the road, but we have to start looking at, when we talk facilities committee, we have to include that. It's in 10 years.
And it's in the building condition
You're gonna see
survey
it.
too,
Yeah.
a report to get moving on it, so.
And we'll have to study that that service we have here, and at peak hours at between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock, what's the draw that we would have on that, and what would the impact of that be, and all those things we have to start thinking about, yes.
Okay.
All right, better luck and soon. Curriculum update, Dr. Dudek.
So tomorrow and Friday, we are going to have, we're going to be welcoming Susan Isaacs in from Safe and Civil Schools. On Thursday, tomorrow, she's going to be working with the specific foundations teams from all of the buildings to help them with the work that they've been doing for the past, well, in the case of the middle school, a few years, and in the case of the others, the last year and a half. Then on staff day, she'll be addressing all of the faculty and administrators in the auditorium as an opening day presentation. And then she's going to meet at the primary and the high school and the aides in the buildings for specific presentations. Then I just wanted to just give kudos to our new teachers, our first and second year teachers. We as an administrative team decided that our newer teachers needed a little bit more help when it came to classroom management, student engagement, and using the work of Safe and Civil Schools with Susan Isaacs and a particular book called Champs. We redesigned the new teacher orientation to not just be 3 days in August, but to continue through the year. And so, 1 month, the principals will present at their buildings, and then the next month, I get to work with them as an entire group. And so far, I've had 3 meetings with the group, and I cannot tell you how much I enjoy working with them. We have wonderful conversations, great questions, and we've gotten to be very close in that we try very hard, a question is presented, and we go, okay, how would you handle this? And so we get the input of several, and it's really a tremendous learning community. I told them the next time we meet in May, they'll be evaluating me, so have at it. And it'll be anonymous, so they can really have fun. But they don't know this yet, but my plan for the May meeting is for them to write themselves a letter, and then in July, I'm going to mail them out, and really just to remind them what they've learned and what they might want to revise for the next school year. So, and I just want to thank all the principals. I think we've had fun. Thank you.
Now, just to point out, because they didn't know earlier, all the new teachers know now, because they're probably watching at home. The last one is NISCUS, or then recognitions, but NISCUS stands for New York State Council of School Superintendents. And going there, we're training, so all the superintendents meet, but the last event is always the commissioner speaking. That's why I keep playing with my phone to keep it up, because that's where I took my notes. So with that, one thing I found, the very first topic they talked about that I found interesting was they said, how they're doing a lot of good work, and there's a lot of what they're having done and put out there, but they say, even though we're trying to take down barriers, there's still barriers. And I kind of, what do you mean there's still barriers? You just said you're trying to take them down and make everything better. And that's where they talked about the formula, that when they're implementing things and try to put out programs and curriculum and everything for students, whether it's social, emotional, or academic, that the formula, the way it is still creating barriers. So it's not happening. I thought that was a great recognition by them, because that's the frustrating part, as you heard earlier at the beginning of the meeting, when we're talking about the budget and what we can put in place for people. So that was the first I ever heard that recognized, and what's going to happen with it, I don't know, but at least they're talking about it publicly. The next thing they talked about was universal pre-kindergarten, and that is, their goal is to have all 4-year-olds attending. And then once that's accomplished, they would like to have all 3-year-olds getting access to school, at an earlier age. And they also talked more about CTE programs, so technical programs. Typically, a lot of our students get that through the BOCES program, which great programs there for people to look at for getting out for jobs. And with that, they are looking to get more aid in there for these special services. So that was good to hear. They talked about that for a while. They're really looking to get equitable opportunities for all students, so they talked about that. It was very interesting. Then they moved in talking about APPR, which is the evaluation of teachers. And the very first comment when we brought up, hey, we should want to hear about APPR. The commissioner said, well, I've never been to anything where someone hasn't wanted to talk about APPR. And I kind of chuckled at that. I'm like, imagine why. And with that, they said that they're still waiting. They agree they believe APPR should be reformed, but they're waiting to hear more and to have a consensus. So yeah, we believe it should be changed, but we're waiting for more of it to come from the legislators and the governor about, hey, would you like to change APPR? And that kind of frustrated me at that point. Very pleased with them earlier, because I think they're the ones that should be over there advocating it. So they're really waiting for the attention from the... No. Yeah, go right ahead.
Reforms by returning to local control, is that what they mean, or reforms a different way? Or didn't they specify?
They didn't specify. They didn't. A great question, because they asked a reform and who knows where it would go. But they said it should be reformed. And then for elementary students, they said really in looking at all the different data for the state, for all schools, phonics, phonemic awareness, and content, that's really needs to be addressed, needs to be changed, needs to Reading is a big conversation we're having in our district now too, of how to keep improving that aspect of education for all students. So, you know, we're looking at, our teachers are doing great. Dr. Dudek, our principals are doing great with all of that. You know, so we're looking forward to keeping improving what we're doing here at Iroquois. If there's no questions, recognitions. High school musical, SpongeBob. If you haven't heard it on my Monday messages, the tickets are on sale now, and that's March 16th through the 18th, which is this week. Thursday, now pay attention, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and Saturday afternoon. There's 4 shows. Sometimes people think, oh, it'll be on Sunday. No, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are the shows. Go on the website, you know, and get the tickets. And if you can't find the website, use my message. There's a quick link right there for it. What's that?
I thought they usually did 3, so we've added an extra
They
show
added
this
an
year.
extra one.
That's
They had an
nice. I
extra
like
show with that, so that's good.
Okay, good, okay.
Staff basketball game was March 9th. That was good. It was a lot of fun. People enjoyed watching people run around out there.
Our own Heather Jacobs was there.
Star player, I heard, star player.
Yeah,
Currently, some of our high school art students are exhibiting their work at the spring celebration at the Corrals Nelson Gallery, if I said that right. The event is sponsored by the Buffalo State Design Department, and the exhibit will be held from March 13th to the 29th. Evening reception for the students on March 23rd at 6. Awards will be announced at this time. Seeing the work of our students, I really hope they bring back some awards because it's phenomenal what they do. New York State Youth Art Month Flag Contest. Wales primary student Everly was recognized with an honorable mention in the statewide flag design competition, and the theme was Your Art, Your Voice, so congratulations. Ms. Lasky, K-5 students created Valentines for hospice in Cheektowaga and the Alma Public Library. Valentines from Merla Primary were also delivered to the local community veterans. High school concert was last week. Amazing job. You should really come to our concerts. It's a great night out. Last week, the high school vocal music department presents March Intermezzo. It was a delightful mix of music performed by several choral groups as well as some of our talented senior solos. Congratulations to the senior clarinetist, Aurelia, for her acceptance in the New York State Band Directors Association statewide honor band. Great accomplishment. She was chosen amongst hundreds of applicants to represent Iroquois in Syracuse the weekend of March 3rd to the 5th. She participated in a weekend of rehearsals with students throughout New York State, which culminated in a grand finale concert on Sunday. She's an active member and leader of multiple performance ensembles here at Iroquois, and congratulations to her. Sports, cheerleading, ECIC second place, Section 6 second place, state qualifiers, and finished 7th in New York State. Wrestling, Trevor, Section 6 champion, state qualifier, finished 3rd in the state. Congratulations to your family. Michael, Section 6 second place, state qualifier. Michaela, girls statewide invitational qualifier, 3rd place. And she did some competitions earlier right now, so she's doing really well. An intersectional competition champion, 1st place, and received the most outstanding wrestler award. Indoor track and field, girls Division II sectional 6 champions. Ariana, state qualifier in girls interscholastic relay, boys Division II section 6 3rd place. Boys ice hockey, congratulations to Brandon for being named on the first team all-star for the all-B boys hockey team. And congratulations to him again, and Reed for being pick of the play for the senior all-star game. So congratulations to all those athletes. And that's what I have for recognitions.
Wonderful things going on by our students.
Yeah,
That's
they're
great. Okay, that leads us to recognition of guests. We don't have anybody who wishes to be recognized for items that are on the agenda. Is that correct? Okay, so that moves us to our discussion of agenda items 13.01 through 25.10. Does anybody have any questions or comments about agenda items? Okay, then we'll move on to our consensus. Is there a request to withdraw any items from the agenda? And how about to add any items to our agenda? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consensus agenda items 13.01 through 25.10?
Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? And that motion carries. And that brings us through. Gotta skip a lot of pages here. A recognition of guests on any topic, and we do have somebody that would like to be recognized, Mr., is it Eisinger? Eichinger. Oh, that's an R, okay. Come on up. He has questions about track and field.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware, you've been over, and I don't know clearly what's done, so that's kind of what I was hoping to gather a little tonight. All the throwing areas between the field and the school, they are not even close to level or prep for the spring. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. If you are having a throwing event, you're actually throwing uphill. Usually there will be a gravel or a sand pit there for them to throw into for the ease of marking, and I don't know if that's still coming. I've heard grumblings both ways, but the rumor mill is no fun, so that's why I want to try to talk and find out what exactly is left to be done, and if you guys were even aware of the fact that the ground is not even close to level, because that will affect the events. The second thing I was hoping to find out, again, I want to know more about the concessions area because the whole rumor mill thing, and I thought it was going to be more of a roundtable conversation, but apparently I should have been here at 5 for that, so I apologize.
Don't worry, I got your number. I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call. I'm writing a list of what you want.
So I would just like to, again, I'd just like to get it cleared up to know, are we copacetic? Was there issues? If there was issues, who can we get back in here and get the stuff corrected? And the third thing I wanted to touch on, a few years back, my family and another family actually paid to get some Dave Ramsey financial educations put into the school. We paid for a middle school class, a high school class, and a business startup class. And I have had 2 kids in the 3 to 4 years that that's been around say that they heard anything on it. Some of you guys clearly know who I am. I'm just trying to help raise some kids who are responsible, good, and taxpayers and not takers and productive people. So when we got to go to the hospital or whatever, we're actually seeing good people instead of, I remember you. So I would like to know, answers to those 3 things. Whoever can help me out, that'd be wonderful.
We will make sure to have one of our administrators call you.
Yeah, he might have my number. So. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And that is all of our guests. So we do need to enter into a executive session after our meeting. And once we conclude that, we would only come back to adjourn our meeting. The board is in receipt of a statement of charges against a tenured employee. May we have a motion to go into executive session to consider the charges pursuant to section 3020A of the education law?
So moved.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries. And again, when we come back, it will be just to adjourn our meeting. Thank you. session. Can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.